Hi, everybody. This is Sunday, June 22nd, 2025, and this video is part of a video journal in my recovery from the trauma of watching my little brother, Paul Kierans, be locked up by the British Columbia New Democratic Party government with David E.B. as leader. Paul was locked up for 588 days in his group home after I complained to the Burnaby RCMP about what I alleged to be a fraudulent and forged power of attorney the government created to give Paul the COVID-19 shot on February 1st of 2021. And so they locked Paul up for 588 days, and then he had a stroke or some kind of brain incident that caused him to be hospitalized. After that, they allowed me to visit him for 10 minutes per day, but he only lasted 10 days. I believe that they did medical assistance in dying on him. They took away his ventilator. He was struggling to recover. Most people don't die from strokes in this day and age, and he was doing very well. He was struggling to recover. As soon as they found out that the Burnaby RCMP had been ordered, or that I knew that the Burnaby RCMP had been ordered to reopen the investigation into the fraudulent and forged power of attorney, they removed his ventilator and sedated him to death. So after Paul died, they brought on an application to have me declared a vexatious litigant. That's a very rare and unusual designation for people who basically bring on all kinds of frivolous court applications or court processes, and they never win. I am myself a disabled person. I was practiced as a psychologist for the government of BC for 3 years, and then I went to law school and I was a federal prosecutor for 3 years, and then I went into family law, and I practiced family law for about 23 years before I was injured in an accident. I'm disabled and I'm not allowed. I have a medical certificate from a cardiologist saying I cannot be in court for longer because it's very stressful. I can't be in court for longer than 2 hours per day. But after Paul died, then they went after me to take away all of my civil rights. They took away all his basic charter rights, his freedom of association, his freedom of mobility, every single charter right under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms was taken away from Paul. He was never allowed to speak with a lawyer. He was never allowed to appear in court. I had a subpoena. I served him with a subpoena to court, but his group home wouldn't allow him to come to court. And the other people that I subpoenaed to come to court didn't come. But anyways, after he died, or he was killed, I believe that they did medical assistance in dying on him, to which he could not consent. Canada kills about 20 people a day extrajudicially without any legal oversight whatsoever, but they still they can only kill people who are mentally competent at this point, although that is going to change shortly. So Paul could never have consented to being killed, and he was struggling to recover. So the hearing of my appeal of the designation, the judge went ahead for 2 half days and 2 full days against doctor's orders in this hearing to have me declared a vexatious litigant. None of my materials that I had asked to be filed with the court were filed with the court. They left them out. It was egregious, in every possible protection of civil rights that you're given in court was taken away from Paul and then was taken away from me. So the judge declared me a vexatious litigant, which means I can't respond to, you could sue me and I couldn't respond without permission of the court, and I can't sue anybody. And I'm not a vexatious litigant. Since I was injured in an accident in 2008, I've had litigation to deal with my disability, and I've won some pretty major, I've had some pretty major successes, and I've lost too, but I have not been vexatious, or I've had about a 50-50 success rate. But anyways, so the hearing of my appeal of my designation as a vexatious litigant is on Tuesday at 2:00, so you can watch it online. You just go to the British Columbia Court of Appeal website, and they have a hearing tab, and just click on the hearing tab, and you can watch it. I think it's done by Zoom. And if the courts are aware, the Court of Appeal is aware of whether you're watching or not, and whether there's an interest in the community. I have tried to spark an interest among journalists and reporters and the normal mainstream media outlets, and nobody has expressed the slightest bit of interest, even though Paul was locked up for 588 days by the government, and then he was killed. And now they're going after my civil rights. But I'm, obviously very stressed out and worried. I feel like I've done everything that I can possibly do to prepare for the hearing at 2:00 on this coming Tuesday, June 24th. But it would really help if you watch it. If you just click on the link, and even if you don't watch the whole thing, if you just click on the link, they're going to see that there is some interest in this case. I've been trying to think of what I'm going to say, because I've only got 2 hours, and I'm not going to go 2 hours. But what I was thinking of starting off with is describing. I just found I was so puzzled and outraged by this judge's decision to find me a vexatious litigant in my absence, like risking, when going ahead, I showed her the letter from my cardiologist saying I couldn't appear in court for longer than 2 hours. And she said, well, can't you just sit in the gallery? And I thought, who would ask someone to risk their life for what I see as a frivolous application? I mean, my sister, the person the government appointed as my brother's guardian, won everything. And then he died. So why would they go after me? But anyway, so why would this judge ask me to risk my life to appear in court for longer than 2 hours against doctors, explicit from 3 different doctors? And I thought about probably the most famous psychological experiment in history I learned about back when I was taking psychology courses in 1974. There was a psychologist, Dr. Stanley Milgram, who was trying to explore the reason why the Nazis were so vicious and the basis for authoritarianism. Why would ordinary, doctors and lawyers and butchers and bakers kill 6 million people? Lock them up, torture them, and kill them. Like, how could that be? And he did this experiment where he had just regular students at the university involved in this experiment. He put them in a room where they had a lever where they could press the lever and exert electroshock on somebody in another room. And they could hear the person in the other room, but I don't think they could see them. And the lever had notes on it, or was labeled neutral, very serious, caution, may cause suffering and death. And they would have a researcher come into the room where the experimental subjects, the students were, and stand over them with a white coat, like a white lab coat. And they just stood over them. And I think in almost every case, the student pressed the lever, and they could hear somebody shouting and suffering in pain in the next room. But they pressed the lever right up until serious injury and death, when they had the person in a lab coat standing over them. And this is one of the most famous experiments in psychology, and it wouldn't be allowed now because it wouldn't pass any of the, it was very, caused a lot of suffering for the people when they realized what they had done. They hadn't actually injured or harmed anyone, but they thought that they were, and explained that experiment. Stanley Milgram's experiment explained why people would engage in harmful behavior against others in the face of authority, an authority figure, like somebody, and a researcher standing there in a lab coat. There were some rare people that actually got up and walked out, and they wouldn't press the lever down to serious injury and death against the person they believed was in the other room suffering. So anyways, that's my only explanation for why that judge would go ahead and have hearings longer than the 2 hours that I'm limited to by my cardiologist and my family doctor. Is that she felt there was she was young, she was younger than me, and she also worked at the Federal Department of Justice. So she knew that. We had both worked there, although she didn't work. She worked there in 1995. I'm sorry, in 2005, and I was there between 1992 and 1994. But I just was astounded that she would ask me to risk my life to appear in court. And like somebody said to me, it's like she was daring you to have a heart attack right in front of her. Anyways, those are my thoughts for today. I love you all. Take care, everyone. And please don't forget to click on the British Columbia Court of Appeal website hearing list and watch my Zoom appeal hearing. And wish me luck and pray for me. Take care, everyone.